Hey guys, how's it going? Butts and Coconuts here. Still somewhat fresh off of my victory at Hobby Shop Ichiban in California at one of the first regionals of this season. Here today, wanting to talk to you guys about my regional experience and, you know, all that sort of nerd shit that goes with that whenever I talk about this stupid game. So, I got first at HSI. I just said that. I played Hinologi and I kind of want to talk about why I played Hinologi and why I thought I would be really successful if I played Hinologi. Uh, I'm going to put a link to my deck list in the description of this video. I would normally link to the Heart of the Cards website because that also has. I guess I'll just leave a link to both. Just be warned that I believe my deck list on the Heart of the Cards website is a little incorrect. Last time I looked at it, it was 46 cards because some copies of cards were just missing. There were no cards missing, just some of the numbers were incorrect. So, whatever, it happens. So I'll just link to both. Um, one of the big reasons I wanted to play Hinologi at this event was I just didn't think anyone would be super prepared for that deck. That deck has been kind of getting choked out in the Japanese meta. As I understand, Hinologi was kind of this Satan's spawn deck in that meta, and a lot of people were playing it earlier this year, and it was really popular and really successful. And then a lot of people started teching for it accordingly with like heavy counts of anti-change measures, or like stuff that bounces cards, the kind of stuff that you would generally use to kill like a big early play deck. Um, and then teching against Heatologic is generally pretty successful because they don't really do anything besides sit on the Yukos. So, you know, the numbers for Heatologic have gone down since that deck first became popular, but only because people have been teching for it accordingly in Japan, at least. Like just because the deck is doing worse in one region doesn't mean it's going to do worse in all region. Everyone has to adapt for it accordingly. Otherwise, you're just going to get pub stomped by it. I think Heatologic is like a total pub stomp deck, and I think that since not a lot of people played it in the West because it was kind of viewed as this weird, awkward deck for a while, I think because not a lot of people played it in the West, not a lot of people are going to be prepared for it. People might not even know what it does entirely, and then because of all that, or because of people's predisposed notions of the deck, I just don't think people are going to respect it or prepare well for it, which I think I've said like 100 times, considering how many times I've tried to record this intro. Anyway, so Heatologic wasn't the only deck I thought about playing. I'll get into that and my thought process with that in a little bit. Um, the first thing I want to talk about is the kind of decks I expected to see at the regional. Um, so the first thing I thought I would see a bit of was No Game No Life, just because it's the newest set, and No Game No Life itself was like a really popular anime. So I thought there would just be, enough people there, not like super serious people, like people who play the game and just play the sets they like or the sets they own. You're going to always run into people like that at these events, so I feel like it's worth sort of investing time, even if you don't think the set is very good, you should at least familiarize yourself with what it does. And the only thing I was super concerned about um, in No Game No Life beyond like your average anti-change punches and anti-change bombs is this 2-3 event, which is massive wall of text. If you know what it does, you know what it does. Um, if you don't know what it does, basically, I feel like they made this card as a very blatant anti-Henologic card, but it's such a strange and unwieldy card to use, and the deck it goes in is probably not super strong. So, um, I guess my thought process is if somebody's building this Shiritori deck to just completely dog on Logic, they're gonna lose matches to like not Logic type decks. So then it's kind of like I don't know. I just didn't think I would actually see this card, even if I thought people would be playing No Game No Life. The other deck I expected to see a lot of was Bang Dream, which is now on the screen. And the card I was most concerned about in Bang Dream was this Himari card because generally when people play this Himari, it's like a 3 or 4 of because it has this really nice um, easy alarm effect to get free stock. But this card is also an anti-change bomb, so it's kind of like, well, I'm playing 3 or 4 of this card to get stock, but if my opponent's just going to lose when I deal with his threats, then I guess I'll just play these down, um, and he'll lose. Uh, I wasn't sure if the people in LA played builds of Bang Dream like that, though. I don't really play in that area much because it's just not a. The nights of their locals are nights I generally don't want to, like, how do I describe it? LA is like far enough away that I would want to make a whole day trip out of it, and it happens on days where I'm usually already busy, so it's just never. I'm never like super open to go to LA. But I just kind of guessed that there'd be a lot of Bang Dream just from talking to a bunch of them, and I was right. There are 3 Bang Dream decks. I don't know if any of them would have given me trouble because I didn't really see the lists that in depth. I just know it was 2 differently built Pastel Palettes decks and a Hello Happy World deck. So I'm kind of just leaning towards maybe they weren't playing uh, the Himari. Um, so yeah, that's just sort of the decks that I thought I would see a lot of that I was afraid of. The only other thing I was also kind of afraid of was decks that incidentally play winds, but I think they would need to play like 8 wind triggers to even like consistently deal with what Logic can do. So yeah, I guess I was just more afraid of these decks that could incidentally deal with Logic and still get value out of their cards, as opposed to decks that were hurting themselves by including a significant number of outs to Logic. So I felt pretty confident that people weren't going to build their decks like that because either greedy, selfish deck building, or maybe their decks or sets didn't have access to the appropriate tools to deal with Logic. Anyway, so that's how I ended up on Logic. Just as a side note, I also considered Star Wars in this microscopic chance that this set would be legal. Rip Star Wars. I considered Saikano because I think that the 2-1 Michiru package is great, but I don't think the deck does anything amazing at level 3. So I've always been kind of turned off of the deck because of that, but I think the 2-1 support into several 2-1 Michirus is like super powerful. I really enjoy that strategy. Um, but I just didn't think it was good enough. Standby Symphogear. I love Standby Symphogear. It's a very flexible deck. There's like a gajillion ways to build the deck, but part of the problem is because there's a billion ways to make the deck, there's no real hard right answers in my opinion. So it's just kind of like what you like or what you think is most effective, and I definitely think this is like a contender. At the end, it was between this and Logic, but ultimately, to me, Logic is so uninteractive in what it's trying to achieve and how it achieves it. The most interactive part is the 1-0 Yuko on reverse search, but that's like such a low effort card to get the return out of it that yeah, I just ended on Logic after all of it. Like I love Symphogear, and like I love the show, I love the characters, I love the designs. I love the cards. Like Symphogear is just hands down one of my favorite things in Weiss. So, um I'd kind of discard my pride because I own Heatologic because I'm a shameless Japanese meta slave. I don't know anything about the show. I don't know anything about Luck and Logic. I just heard it was broken. I proxied it for a little bit, and I was like, yeah, you know what? This does seem kind of broken. I'm gonna buy these cards. So, hashtag shameless or whatever. So to get onto the actual tournament, round one, I played against Standby Sword Art Online. I actually played against someone from San Diego. Um, but that person in particular hasn't played against me a lot playing Henologic, so I don't know. I guess he just didn't know what to expect or wasn't prepared. His deck didn't seem to have anti-change bombs or anti-change punches even, so it was just a very simple case of I get out my Yukos, I get some markers, and then eventually I just snowball my compression. Uh, there was one point in the game where it was a little dicey because I think um, he could have like done a bunch of swings at me with the switch combo, but he didn't get the climax or something. So that kind of sucks. But um, I ended up winning that game. Uh, round two, I played against Attack on Titan. I'd say this was probably my hardest match of the day, both because he winded my Yukos. So he winded my Yukos, but it was kind of too late by the time he winded them. He winded one like pretty early. I don't remember exactly when he winded it. So I lost the compression from that one pretty quickly. But the other Yuko stayed alive for like a really long time. He winded it on, I think, the turn he died, or the turn before I killed him. So it didn't entirely matter. Because by then I had already refreshed a couple times. I'd already gotten like the gains or the returns of my Yukos, creating compression and creating better deck states for myself. So even though he dropped triple Mikasa and burned me a bunch of times, I didn't die. His deck also didn't seem to play the anti-change punch or the anti-change counter. When you play Henologic, you actually pay pretty close attention. Well, rather, if you want to play Henologic well, you end up paying pretty close attention to where your opponent's anti-change options end up. It's also super beneficial to just know and understand what your opponent's sets anti-change options are. That's something I definitely do research about in general, just because I want to better myself as a player by knowing what a lot of decks can do. Um, but yeah, this is one of those moments where it's like it didn't even seem like he was playing the yellow anti-change bomb or the anti-change punch. Or if he did, like it went into a zone and I didn't notice it went into a zone. Like it could have gone into the first card of his stock and they never paid it out. Like one of those scenarios. But I'm just going to assume he wasn't running those cards. Because otherwise the ability that Attack on Titan can find cards because of how often they have access to the movement gear, I assume he would have searched those cards to try to counter my strategy. Round three, I played against Kill a Kill. This game was pretty free. Um, not only does Kill a Kill not really have answers to Henologic, the best thing it has to deal with early plays is this Satsuki that gets uh, really big, but that usually doesn't work against Henologic because I either search punches or I get the back row support that can rest my reversed characters. So doing that in one lane is extremely ineffective. So beyond that, Satsuki Kill a Kill can't do anything about big early plays, and I don't think he was even playing that Satsuki, so I just dropped triple Yuko, got them out of kill range because there was one point where I thought maybe he could Ryuko early play and do the climax combo, and it would be barely bigger than one of my Yukos. That never actually happened. It just seemed like a really poor game for him in general because he missed his early on reverse combo, and then I dropped three early plays, and his set just doesn't have the tools to deal with that. So that was a pretty easy victory. And then final round, I played against Saikano, like a standby variant that summons the 2/1 Michirus. It's like the build of Saikano I really like. He played a lot more of the resonance cards than I do. I generally just play the 2/1 back row to spawn the 2/1 beaters. Didn't really look like he was playing the anti-change bomb at all. I think after talking to him or one of his friends, he was playing one of the Utaha anti-change punch, but his own inexperience in the matchup led him to never really grab that anti-change punch, just because I don't think he understood how important a card like that is against Hina Logic. So that was another game where I just got like a critical mass of markers and then I was unkillable. Um, he what was it? He like triple Michiru'd me, and I think from all the attacks I took 1 damage because um, or I took 2 damage technically, I guess. I took 1 damage from a burn one, and then I took a second damage from refreshing because he milled me so much. But by the time he dropped his Michirus, I had so few non-climaxes in deck that even if he was burning for these huge numbers with Michiru, I was just like cancel on one, cancel on one, cancel on one. Like that should give you an idea of what my deck state was like, I guess. And then I believe there was supposed to be around 5, but the table above me, they they were the other exos, so naturally I would be playing one of those 2 guys, but they both um, they timed out, so they double lost, which meant I was the last XO. And after calling Hard the Cards to clarify if that meant the tournament was over, the tournament was indeed over, and I was crowned champion of Hobby Shop Ichiban. So, um, to me, these games don't really sound super impressive as far as the power of Hina Logic. I know I'm just kind of saying stuff like I I compressed, therefore I won, but the deck's like goals and the way it achieves those goals are super basic. So it's not like I can say these things like it's not like I can describe how a Milky Holmes or a Guardian deck wins, because those decks are also really compression-y, but then they're compressing through stock and then they do something with the stock. So whatever, I guess. And even if you don't think my testimony of Hina Logic sounds like really impressive from this, I don't blame you either, because the point of this video is for more to just say that I think I made a correct choice in what I thought the meta would be like, and then I was rewarded for it more so than like um, I played what I thought the best deck was and I got rewarded for it. Because playing the best deck and playing the right deck are 2 totally different concepts. Like you can discuss for hours with someone what you think the best decks are in the game. Uh, and then that's like a pretty constructive exercise, I think, to discuss what the best decks are and to have your own sort of tier list or views of it. But I don't think that playing like once you get that answer, that best deck might not be the best deck for the event you're playing in, and you won't really know what the best deck for the event you're playing in is until after the event is over. So this is kind of paradoxical, I guess, but I guess to me, I just made a good choice, and I feel really good about making a good choice because it makes me feel intelligent or whatever. And I'd like to think that for as much thinking I do about the game, that I can have tangible returns. So yeah, um, that was my regional experience. My advice to you guys is if you're playing in a regional that's mostly your locals, you should try to make informed deck building decisions based on what you expect other people to be playing. If you have that luxury of knowing what a majority of the field is, then it should be easy to come up with a strategy that can counter a lot of things, especially if you know that there's certain players with certain decks that are just like really good or really powerful, like sets that you think are really powerful. Um, and play anti-change bombs and don't lose to Hina logic. That is my advice to you guys. Anyway, I gotta get out of here. I've been recording this for like a fucking hour or something. I just wanted to get something out there for the people, and for those of you guys who qualify, I guess I'll see you at nationals this year. Peace.